Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 20th, 2021 ZBA Board of Appeals meeting, Wednesday at 7:05. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce who we have on the board this evening and our new administrative assistant, Elaine Strug. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We also have our town planner, Rich McCarthy, and we are expecting another board member this evening, but we'll get started without him. To my left is David Axburn, and to my right is Josephine, and I'm Tim Martin. Tonight, our first public hearing is, oh, and also I should announce that this will be on Zoom. You can participate on Zoom also. And Andrew's taping it for Norfolk Community Television for replay. Our first hearing tonight, 228 Dedham Street. It was originally an application for 2 special permits. Originally, it's been continued from September 1st, 2021. The applicant has requested a continuance to our next scheduled meeting of November 17th, 2021. So I'd like to get a motion on that, to continue that hearing.
I motion a second.
Any discussion? And do we want to pick a time for that? We can look at the agenda.
Well, at this point, you could put it on for 7 o'clock.
Okay, so we have a motion to
Just
move.
the same time.
We have a motion to move the 228 Dedham Street application to November 17th at 7 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, since we're gonna be waiting for one more board member, my understanding is he'll be along here soon. We could do a little bit of housekeeping, I think, to keep the meeting moving along. We have, for the board, we have minutes in your packet in front of you. We'll jump ahead to those. We have the minutes from August 5th, 2021, and the minutes from September 1st, 2021. If you haven't read those, I'd ask you to take a look at that, and if they're acceptable, I'd entertain a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
I did get a chance to read them, and they're acceptable to me.
Okay, I've also had a chance.
I did too.
All right, do we have a motion on the meetings, minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written,
Okay, and that would be the August 5th and,
August 5th, and can we do them together, or do we have to do them separately?
we can do them together.
We can do them together, there's no changes, right? So,
Nope.
it's fine.
And September 1st.
Very good. Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
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 All right, since we're still waiting for another board member, before we start our hearing on Medway Branch,
The computer doesn't recognize me, so I need to have that password, and I can't read that far away.
they're asking me to read that far away.
You took a picture of it last
I did, I'm looking through it now, so, but people are gonna think I'm playing, but I'm really looking for the, password, so.
Oh, Rich had it written down for
Yeah,
me.
written down? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
I suppose,
Which, if we want to, we have a little bit of time here, a few minutes anyway, if you want to start part of your town planner updates,
sure,
if you'd like.
I will, yeah, something that would be appropriate to do that. So the first item under my town plan updates is, well, actually, I'm gonna augment it a little bit. I did send out an email with, some training available through Citizen Planners Training Collaborative. And so if you want, I know Josie got back to me in terms of, one of them. So if you see any ones that you want, just let me know. And then we can, pay for the training, and then you can sign up to take those. So just let me know,
Great.
for whatever you
Yep.
want, to do. Those are pretty helpful. I'm gonna probably take a few of them myself.
Okay.
It's good to have some continuing education.
Yeah, I did see some of the topics, they looked right on point, so it was good.
Yeah. So in terms of the next item, under my updates is a presentation regarding the wastewater study for Norfolk Town Center. That'll be next Thursday, October 28th, 7 PM. It will be virtual, so there won't be any in-person. The link should be up on the website. I can check, but if not, I'll make sure I send it off to you. So it'll just be a recap of the wastewater study that was done by Wilburn and Kern for Town Center, which looked at the options of expansion of the plant on the hill, connection to MCR Norfolk, a no option, no change, and then building a new plant. So depending upon the outcome, we'll see where it goes from there. I did go to the conservation meeting last week on the 13th, and they were open to the idea, there's a conservation property behind the Freeman Kennedy, so right next to where the ball fields are now. Park and Rec was there as well to ask to potentially put a soccer field on there to provide additional soccer field. So they gave them the vote to proceed with the soccer field, and then potentially the wastewater, the leach field for the wastewater plant potentially could go there too. I just have to go back to them, so.
Okay.
That was a good positive step because in terms of sewer planning, you know, we need to, that's at least, I'm giving you a little tip ahead for the presentation, but that was a potential location that we investigated already. so.
Okay.
So you're welcome to attend, I'll send the link out. In terms of updates to the zoning bylaws, the planning board held a public hearing on the 12th of October, recommend the floodplain changes, and then the sign bylaw change. In terms of the floodplain, it's, what we end up, I think I mentioned this before, but we end up doing is taking our existing bylaw, and we blended some of the requirements from the model bylaw that was put out through the Department of Conservation and Recreation, through the state. We, relatively speaking, I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of our existing bylaws, so there wasn't too many changes that were needed. One of the changes was the fact that, I'll call it a permit, if you will, so if somebody wants to put a fence in, you're in the floodplain, a shed, or pave your driveway, it does require a permit now, which will be but it would be a permit that would be issued at the staff level.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing for the conservation agents, we've at least made, designated her as the floodplain administrator, so she wasn't too thrilled, but however, you know, there's obviously a great connection between the work of the Conservation Commission, which is jurisdictional to the
Sure.
floodplain, so I think it made logical sense. I think when I was at the Conservation Commission, you know, they kind of thought back in terms of projects before them, and they've had, you know, projects that were jurisdictional to them that have been the floodplain, so I'm not sure it really will make a significant difference, you know, in terms of changes. But one of the things I did work with the DPW, they put together a list and pulled all the homeowners that are within the floodplain, structure-wise. So I'm gonna send them a letter, with a link to the bylaw on the website, and just let, you know, inform them that the bylaw is going before town meeting on November 9th. It's important to them if they're in the floodplain, because if we don't make these changes, then they will potentially take us out of the National Floodplain Insurance Program. And for those that are getting flood insurance through them, it's a
Well,
significant.
that's just a courtesy notice to those people that. we
Yeah, it's a
can identify.
courtesy to them. And so in terms of the fact that we have this data, you know, we pulled the data in terms of those homes, then we'll have a better idea to be able to track if permits come in. You know, the challenge is, I think, for most people, oftentimes you put a fence in, you don't pull a permit, you know, you don't need a fence, you know, so. And fence might be in your backyard, so kind of, we'll have to work with people. We're not gonna, you can't go tromping through the yard to see they got a fence in the floodplain, so. We'll have to figure it out, but it's one of those things which is being pushed down to us like a lot of things from the top.
Yep.
And then we're here implementing and have to, you know, work with the residents and explain to them why and so forth, so, but, hopefully, and I'm hoping that we do get this passed in November, because I don't wanna jeopardize that.
Right.
Because I did do a little bit of homework in terms of policies. I mean, there could be upwards of double the cost for somebody if they have to get flood insurance outside the National Flood Program. And I did also notice that I guess we're like the third highest in the country for floodplain insurance.
Oh, wow.
So our insurance rates for floodplain are even higher, so,
Yep.
you know, again, I think the national average is like 958 and we're at like 13 something, somewhere in there. It was, well, it was Rhode Island along with us, I'm trying to think who the other third community. So anyway, that was the update on that.
Okay.
I think the fun at town meeting, potentially, I call it fun, but debate and discussion will come around the sign bylaw change, which is essentially, you know, the idea to create that internally illuminated sign for messaging from the town in terms of town meeting, those kind of things that are going on. And we'll see, you know, it's mixed, right? In terms of, you know, we have which I know the business community will say more restrictive sign code, but I think that's kind of the feel and what townspeople have wanted here, you know, to kind of, I'll call it quiet signage, if you will, right? And so, you know, this is one of those things where it could be an opportunity to provide it, to show how it could be done well. Some people may like that, some people not, we'll see. But it was recommended by the planning board, so at least if it goes down in flames at town meeting, it could be brought back. So that was I did ask them to at least, please, well, if they're okay to vote in favorably, which they were, so.
Okay.
To continue the discussion, so. In terms of those updates, and then the next, we're moving right through my updates. Not too
That's
bad.
right.
We'll get a jump on the rest of the business, which is great. In terms of Southwood Hospital,
Yep.
we had applied, I mentioned to you before, Executive Office Environmental Affairs Planning Grant. We haven't heard back as of yet on that, but, I think the last meeting was, actually, I did talk about the site inspection, I
You
think.
did,
the la-
the
yeah,
site
okay.
inspection.
So we have reached out to GFI Partners to engage with the neighborhood itself, which they are going to be doing that. They are also gonna be reaching out to some of the folks in the PIP group too, to talk about environmental issues. And last, they're gonna come before the planning board, probably in December, with a concept plan for the redevelopment of the property. And I will tell you, in terms of what I've seen, it's within the framework of the existing zoning bylaws, with the exception of the apartments, so.
Okay.
So that's, but they wanna, again, it was they wanna fine tune their plans before presenting them to the town, but I'll share that link, you know, for the planning board, which would be December 14th. And last but not least, in terms of that December 14th planning board meeting, town council is scheduled to go there for a meet and greet. And at that meeting, we'll be going over some of the upcoming bylaws for next spring. So have you join in that discussion and let you know what's coming forward. And that's the wrap up in terms of that. A little concerned is Chris not gonna make it.
I was thinking, let's move on.
Did anybody hear? I hadn't heard.
I didn't hear from him,
I sent out I hadn't hear back from him when
I didn't hear.
asked the roll call. In terms of, so what I think unfortunately we'll probably have to do is, open the hearing and then just vote to continue without any testimony to, the next, well, we could open the hearing and we can.
I think we do have a majority, right?
Yeah, but you do, but you need 4 members
Okay.
because it's a special permit request. I don't know if, Bill, I know you're back there and Barry's there too. I think I saw Barry, right? Yeah, there he is, yeah. So in terms of where we're at, gentlemen, we don't have our 4th member, and 1 member is not with us tonight, so we're down to 3. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. So, I think the course of business for us will be to have the board open up the hearing and then continue it to November 17th. I know you have
That's-
other.
That's fine, Rich.
All right. So if you want to do that, Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Chapter 48 of the Massachusetts General Laws that a public hearing will be held at the Zoning Board of Appeals on October 20th, 2021, at 7:05 in Room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass. The applicant, Town of Norfolk, DPW, is requesting the board consider their application for a special permit pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 9, as amended in Section D.2.A.2 and G.6.C of the Norfolk zoning bylaws to allow the reconstruction of the existing salt shed. The property is located at 33 Medway Branch, Norfolk, Mass. Assessors Map 9, Block 36, Lot 15, in the R1 zoning district. So we're gonna open that hearing now, and because we don't have enough board members, I'm gonna entertain a motion to continue that hearing to November 17th.
I second it.
Any discussion? Do we have a time for November 17th, the recommended time? We wanna keep it at 7:05?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
Okay, so the motion is to continue the 33 Medway Branch special permit application hearing to November 17th at 7:05. All those in favor? Aye. So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you,
What
Bill.
about that, gentlemen? So we just have a few minutes, and
Yeah, I don't know if town council's on the,
I do see one person from the town council's office. I think
okay,
Tom Harrington's on. There he is, waving.
very good.
Chris is joining too, right, Tom?
He is, yeah.
All right.
He should be signing on any minute.
Okay, we'll give them a minute, and what's gonna happen, we have a scheduled 7:30 meeting with town council, an opportunity to meet with town council and say hello, introduce ourselves, and them to introduce themselves to us and how they're gonna assist us. So we'll give them a couple of moments so that they can both get up on Zoom.
Thank you.
And who do we have on Zoom? Is it Tom Harrington we have on right now?
Yeah, this is Tom Harrington.
Okay. And we're waiting for Chris Heap?
Chris Heap.
Chris Heap, correct.
I need some like dentist office music in between, you know?
Yeah, right.
What was it there? Suppose I could put something better up than that. I had to. I could give you a bad update. 7-0 now.
Uh-oh.
Oh, jeez. What is it, like the second inning?
No.
No, it's gotta be much later than that.
Started
Oh, that's right,
early.
it started at 4.
Yeah.
Top of the 7th?
So,
Oh, boy. How things change quickly. It's not over yet.
3 grand slams can always change it.
That's right.
Right. Well, Tom, do you wanna get started without Chris, or would you prefer to wait?
Nope, I'm happy to.
Great, why
He
don't
just
we?
gets in my way anyways.
I didn't hear that.
Well, thank you for your time this evening. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So my name is Tom Harrington. I'm an attorney with Miaris and Harrington, and we were recently pleased and proud to be appointed town council in the town of Norfolk. So part of our way of getting to know our new clients is we're taking the time to visit with each board, to introduce ourselves, to let you know who we are, and to understand kind of the problems you're facing and how we can best help. I'm actually getting a text from Chris right now he's saying the meeting ID is telling him it's not valid. So, Rich, I suspect he's going to be shooting you an email in short order. But so back to the firm. So, Miaris and Harrington, we're located in Wellesley, Mass. We do really specifically and only town council work. It's about 95% of our work. We're town council in 9 towns throughout Massachusetts, and we're special counsel to another, say, 6 to 9 cities and towns throughout Massachusetts. One of the things we're often brought in for is land use. We are land use specialists, and we kind of do it all day, every day, from special permits to site plan review to 40Bs and 40Rs, and we run the gamut. So that's who we are. And we've had the opportunity to get to know Rich a little bit over the past 2 months. And I think we're enjoying a good relationship with him so far. And so I guess I'd love to hear from the board a little bit, just to understand kind of, where you're at in your process, and, if there's any areas that we might be of assistance to you.
Okay, well, good evening. Thank you for helping us out. We have a relatively newer board, and in fact, a very slim board. Right now, we're down to 3 members tonight, but normally we'd have at least a 5-member board, and we have 2 more applications that we're gonna make a recommendation on, maybe later this evening, to get 2 more associate members on board. So typically, we're a 5-member board, as you know, and we'd like to have a full 5-member board plus 2 associates. There's been a lot of, as you may or may not know, there's been a lot of turnover in this year, in the last 6 to 12 months with the board, and so we're relatively new board. And in the recent history, we came through quite a few 40Bs that I was involved in as an associate member last year and the earlier part of this year. I think we just finished 3 40Bs, quite lengthy, and I think some people in the audience can talk about 40Bs because it's near and dear to them. But as you know, 40Bs are complicated. It's a lot to it, a lot of issues. We're trying to get it right. It's not easy. That's my personal view. We'll do the best we can, but we may be calling on you for guidance and expertise on those types of issues. I don't know of any 40Bs that we have coming up. Rich may know. I don't know.
No, at the moment, we don't have anything. We're actually, so we are in safe harbor until July 22nd next year. So unless something presents itself that's the town would want to entertain, there isn't anything at the moment.
Yeah. So beyond that, we have I call it the typical special permit request, the variance request. As I'm sure you know, Norfolk's a very rural town. The character is what we like here. It's unique. It has growing pains like every other area. So these are important. These are important things. Land use is very important to the town. So we're trying to pay attention to it. That's my overview. If anybody else has any questions or?
You've summed it up pretty well. So it's a unique town. A lot of people came here from Boston looking for some of that rural character, and I guess we're trying to mix some of the old with something new. I mean, that may or may not be, opposed to us, but have it somehow fit together so that we don't lose that character,
So one of the things we did talk about is doing some training sessions, and what we thought would make potentially good sense in terms of those trainings is kind of create some past special permits that that you've been involved with, so you have some familiarity to them, and kind of create a new case. So go through them with town council and some variances, some special permits, and just have some training, but it's really somewhat, you have some familiarity on the facts and the background. Other trainings are great, like you'll probably attend when they'll talk about a case, but you're not as familiar with it. So we thought that might be helpful to do that.
That'd be very helpful.
As
Yeah,
well.
I think that's Rich and I kind of cooked that idea up on the phone in the past week or so, and I think that's a good model. You know, we want to help you. We want you to work with your bylaw. You know, and if we can kind of adapt a previous application, and we'll you know, maybe change things around a little bit to make it interesting, and kind of get you through the process so that you're all comfortable with the process. And I just wanted to take a moment to say I do appreciate that Norfolk is a very unique and quite attractive community. Yeah, I've lived in this area my whole life, so I've been you know, in this area for a long time, and can appreciate kind of what you have there. And we have a few other towns that are not unlike Norfolk. We represent Carlisle, we represent Stockbridge, both kind of classic rural towns that are, you know, trying very hard to protect that character that they have, and at the same time, you know, pick and choose what might come and what might enhance things. So we're happy to work with you on those things, and look forward to it. And so I guess if that's a good direction, Rich and I will put our heads together over the next few weeks and start putting together what I would call a module that we can then kind of work with you to get you comfortable with the process, and get you kind of firing on all cylinders.
So was the intent on the so-called training sessions, would that be something that would be open to the public also to participate in?
It would. So in this situation, if the quorum of the board is meeting, the default is that it's open to the public. I will tell you quite frankly that there is an exemption to the open meeting law for training sessions. So we could design it so that it was not open to the public. That would be up to you. Either works. Just remembering that if we're gonna, you know, just kind of have it board only, and not put up, you know, notice and an agenda, then we'd really need to stick to the module.
Yeah. I mean, my personal preference would be, let's open it up to the residents and promote it, and let's get as many folks that want to participate or learn or just casually observe, be part of it. I would encourage that.
Yeah, no, I think the more people that understand the process that the board is going through, you know, the better a butter and participant they can be.
Very good. So that's something that you and Rich will work on?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed, we will.
Thank you.
I think something else that I've always toyed with is the whole idea of the 40B project, where it feels like the state strong arms the local towns to say, you have to do this, you have to do this. Maybe there's a way to explain what a 40B project is in a town like ours, that it's somewhat beneficial, possibly. Maybe do it on a positive instead of a negative. I don't know if there is possible. I mean, I have one going right at button me shortly, so I don't know if it's positive or if it's negative at this point. But in the town, it's taken on a totally different look than it was when I was a kid, but that doesn't mean it's a bad look, you
Right.
know? So I think sometimes we feel strong-armed into doing certain things, and even as boards and zoning boards and other things within the town, how much say do we get to say? I mean, the project that I'm talking about that abuts me was originally supposed to be 144 units or 104 units or something. It's down to 44. So the strong arm didn't seem to work too good there, but maybe that was good on their part and on our part as neighbors. That I think there's a concept of a negativity on 40Bs. The state doesn't necessarily want to come across as being a negative entity either, so I think it might be something that we could talk about or discuss somehow, because we're all new, and I personally haven't gone through a 40B project. I've been at the tail end of one, but that's it. So
Right. So that's actually really good feedback. So yeah, we can take you through kind of the process that presents itself when you're dealing with a 40B, and you know, we've done countless 40B applications throughout our towns. So we do have strategies to try to help a board, handle it the best they can. And not to put too fine a point on it, but the turnaround on your permit is quick, and sometimes you're drinking from the fire hose a little bit.
Yeah, correct.
When the 40B comes in. And so, sometimes those strategies is just to get you as much help in reviewing things and pass those costs on to the applicant so that, you're not diving into the materials to find the answers, but you're hiring people to dive into the materials to find the answers. And then that's presented to you, and, you can negotiate and make your best decisions then. But it's, it is a tricky process, and there's good 40Bs and bad 40Bs, and, may we only see good 40Bs in Norfolk.
There you go. That's what we're looking for.
And since we have an audience here this evening in the room, if anybody, I'd open it up to anybody in the audience, if they have a question for new town council. I mean, I wouldn't get drilled down into your particular matter, but just generally, they're new town council. If you have kind of a general question or something, or guidance you need, or how do we follow up, or procedural, this would be a wonderful time. If you,
And Chris is on too. He is.
okay, he is,
with us, so-
okay. So we have Attorney Chris Heap also on. So if anybody else has a question or something like that, I'd certainly invite it. And there's nobody on Zoom?
I don't see anybody raising their.
Okay.
On Zoom, no.
Anything else from the board?
You pretty much summed it up,
And
so.
if Chris is available, we'd be happy to say hello to Chris.
Hello, everybody. Thanks very much, and sorry for joining after the discussion had already gotten underway. I apologize for that.
That's fine.
Well, welcome
so yeah,
aboard.
very glad to be here, and I very much look forward to working with everybody.
And I can tell you that Chris actually, he had reviewed the one item on the agenda, the regulatory agreement for us, that's before you tonight, so he's already done that.
Great. Okay, and we look forward to some training sessions and your guidance. So thank you very much for making yourself available.
No, I look forward to coming out in the very near future, and hopefully seeing you all in person, and working with everybody going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
So we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but Courtney Starling is here in the audience.
Oh, wonderful.
And as I mentioned, she's here. So the other gentleman, Tyler Toulis, will be joining via Zoom.
Okay.
So if you wanted to get started early, and
Wonderful.
so Courtney, just,
Courtney, if you want to join us, there's a microphone here.
yeah.
Come up and join us. Welcome.
You can
That-
sit
Very
anywhere.
comfortable.
I was behind the gentleman because I see your arm pointing.
So Courtney's here this evening. She's volunteering. She's submitted an application to the select board to become an associate member on this board. So, welcome. And what our role is this evening, we don't appoint her. We don't elect her. It's a little bit new this time. Typically, it goes directly to the select board, and they speak with her and vote her as a ZBA member or not. So what our role is this evening is to kind of a meet and greet, say hello, give an opportunity to have a chat, and maybe we can then make a recommendation as a board, a non-binding recommendation to the select board on our thoughts. So, welcome.
Hello.
You're relatively new to the town, right?
Very new. Been here for a couple. Ooh.
Welcome.
Been here for a couple of weeks. I can project. You good? Okay.
All right. So tell us about your background and why you want to become part of the ZBA.
Okay. Well, my name is Courtney Starling. I live at 76 Union Street, so just down the road. I am relatively new here, but I have been a planner for a relatively long time, it feels like at this point. I've been practicing for 15 years. I started in Suffield, Connecticut, and then went to Brookline, Mass, and then went to Shelburne, Vermont, and then spent the last 8 years on the road as a consultant, and now I am the land use director for the town of Brookline. I'm just like, I already told you about that, for the town of Dover. I'm just down the road in Dover. And so my undergraduate is in geography from Wayne State in Detroit, and a proud Michiganian. My master's is in regional planning from UMass, and basically apparently don't do this enough for, for a living.
Right.
I decided,
You can't get enough.
decided that maybe I would, go ahead and do it for giggles in my own hometown and be involved and try to put some of that to good use.
Very good. And how long have you been in Norfolk?
A couple of weeks.
Really? That's it? Okay.
Like I said, I thought I saw her. She was very new to the
Yeah, a
town.
couple.
What took you so long to apply?
Right.
No.
Couple of weeks. I actually applied before I got here. I preemptively reached out to Rich and Betsy and said howdy, and asked if they had a spot.
So you're in land planning for the town of Dover, is that correct?
Yes.
So,
So I'm the land use director in Dover, so I have a fairly similar role to Rich here, but in Dover where we do slightly less.
Yeah.
But before that, as a consultant, my specialty was affordable housing and zoning.
okay.
And so I've been rocking the 40Bs for a while now.
And you can't get enough of that.
Oh, no, never can get enough of it. But, so, obviously I do it at work, and then, I've been doing it as, kind of a hired gun for quite a few towns in eastern Massachusetts. And so I kind of run the gamut. My smallest client had 500 people in it. My largest is the city of Cambridge, so I've kind of been doing it a little bit everywhere.
And what drew you to Norfolk?
I bought the Nicholas Harris house, the Rockwood house, or you might know it as the Poppy house, or the Freeman house, or possibly the Carlson house, or it's the white one with the barn and the pond.
Barn in the front and the pond in the
Yeah.
back, yep.
Yeah.
I used to mow
It's
it.
quite a house. It's very cool.
It's a beautiful house.
And so it was the house.
It's a
good
little younger
commute.
than mine.
Yeah, well, how old is yours?
1774.
I'll be in touch for contractors when I need one. You can't hire just anyone for that.
No.
But, so yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Very good. Well, thank you for coming out and putting yourself forward as a volunteer, or at least an applicant to volunteer. Did you have any questions, Josie?
I wanted to know, like, in what faculty did you work for the 40B? Were you on the side of the applicant, were you working for the towns?
I always work on the municipal side.
Okay.
So I've never worked for developers. I've either been staff for the town or hired by the town to assist the town with the permitting. And so with 40B, 40B is kind of a whole gamut of both proactive and reactive planning. So obviously like the permitting of individual projects and, bringing in MHP for technical assistance, getting the peer reviewers on board, getting everything all lined up and doing it from the staff perspective. But also consultants largely do, frankly, a lot of the proactive side. So writing housing production plans, writing zoning to support certain types of housing that would count on the subsidized housing inventory, because you got to do that properly. On the back end, doing lotteries and fair housing marketing and tenant selection plans, and so basically kind of the full soup to nuts from concept to construction, and also the proactive planning to stay in safe harbor. So, because as you said, most people do not necessarily have an understanding of 40B or a positive connotation of it. When you start kind of dropping the science that it's 80% area median income, and we're talking about a family of 4 making $108,000, this isn't exactly the Section 8 that people have in mind. And so kind of demystifying, but also working the policy so that it's advantageous to the town and we're actually fitting housing needs. And because, I don't know if people have noticed, but most people in Massachusetts are getting older rather than younger, and there's different housing needs attended with an aging population. And so, it sounds, obvious, but we're not building a lot of housing necessarily that is first floor master, 0-step shower, visible to people in wheelchairs. And so disability planning has also become a big part of my practice, and I've written a lot of ADA plans at this point too for municipalities, so that age and age-friendly communities is kind of always a big focus of mine, and like housing diversity so that you can maintain fiscal balance, because the other thing I do a lot of is municipal fiscal impact analysis.
Okay.
Because everybody wants to know what development costs, but you can't ask for that in 40B, so don't even try it.
Very good.
Have you seen good 40Bs?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
Good.
like I said, a lot of what I do is proactive and help communities line,
Good.
prior to working for Dover, is help them line up the good projects.
Good.
And so there's always the concept of a friendly 40B, and that's why you're in safe harbor, you're always looking for the next project that will hit your 2-year target.
Yes.
And
Very good.
so I kind of help fish for those, and then if it's public-private partnerships, we've done a lot of the RFPs for it, or the MOUs, there's a lot that goes into it. Again, it's a lot of different moving pieces, and I'm kind of at this point done most of them, because because there's not a lot of people who do it, so it's good as a consultant.
There you go.
Very good. Just to dig down, what do you see on 40Bs as the impact from those proposals relative to where we are in an economic cycle?
Well, you're in safe harbor right now until June of '23, and so right now it's, I presume, Rich, because you're in safe harbor, you have a housing production plan that kind of lists out what it is that you think you will be doing, and so, theoretically, you're kind of looking for your next project right now, because that's kind of the timeline. Any developer worth their salt already knows that you're in safe harbor and is not going to be approaching right now. If anybody threatens, saber rattling, that's somebody doesn't know what they're doing, really. So not a serious,
Yeah, yeah.
But right now it's generally time to tee up the next. It's always, you're on like Medfield is a former client. One thing that Medfield's Affordable Housing Committee does is they have a tracking matrix that's down to the unit of what they need to be hitting in the projects that they intend to support and work with. And they're on a 5-year timeline and have been doing it well, and that's kind of a good model. Their matrix is very cool.
Okay. So they've been very proactive.
Yeah, I mean, it
Success.
it depends. I mean, in Medfield, they had a 300-unit project that was deeply unpopular, and managed to be able to defeat that one, but then understood that that was a one-off. You can do it once, maybe if you do it really well, you can do it once. But after that, if you're not, meeting your targets and you're not at 10%, you're vulnerable, and the state at this point is, unless you're meeting your targets, you're starting to, miss grant money and stuff like that. There's, the state has some very specific objectives.
And as you know, this board, we see, we're talking 40Bs tonight, it's a popular topic, but really a lot of what we see, what we typically see are the special permits and on occasion the variance requests, so I'm sure that you're comfortable in those areas, and it's
So that's
pretty-
kind of like the bread and butter of permitting. If we, obviously special permits when you're this, but presumably the planning board is also a special permit granting
It is.
authority
Right.
too. So basically I'm a regulatory purist because the rules are what they are regardless of whether or not we want them to be written the way that they're written. And so, because that's how you write defensible decisions and, do a good job, basically. Well, do a job in any event. Depends on whether or not how good the regulations are if the job's all done. But, and so the scope of the review is what it is. The Board of Appeals always gets variances, and they always get the nonconformities and grandfathering cases, which are always interesting. And so there's the other spice. I know, 40B is part of it, and definitely a big part of the world of the ZBA when they are percolating and in the brewing, and when people are angry about them, especially. But at the same time, there's all the other kind of more normal stuff. So that's also just a part of life.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions? Nope.
I'm very impressed, and we'd be lucky to have you, we really would.
Thank
Well,
you.
if you'll vote to recommend, I'd be really, appreciative. Sounds like fun. Let's.
There you go.
We'll make our recommendation, and hopefully the select board will vote the way we recommend.
You never know.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tyler,
I see him, he's on Zoom.
Okay. We also have another applicant, Tyler Tulos. I believe he's on Zoom.
Yes.
Can you hear us, Tyler?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh,
Can you hear
great.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you. Well, thank you for making yourself available tonight, and thank you for submitting your
Fantastic.
application. We'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us why you think you'd be a good candidate to be on the ZBA.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to do that. My name is Tyler Tullis, as you all know and can see on my little rectangle there on Zoom. But I am a Norfolk resident. I have been for 2 years now, so I'm relatively new to town, comparatively to some, I'm sure. But I've lived in for a couple of years now, and to my own 2 other properties in Norfolk, commercial properties. And so to say I am, basically I'm introducing myself as someone who is vested and invested in the town of Norfolk. And when I saw the opportunity made available to the public to interview, apply, whatever we're doing here in this meeting, to be a part of as a volunteer member of this Board of Appeals, I thought that it would be something that I would be interested in, because I'm here, and I really believe in what Norfolk sees for itself. I've taken a lot of time and reviewed the vision video that you guys put together. I don't know when, but at some point, as your vision, strategic plan concept is what was labeled on the video for Norfolk, and for future development and future products and ways to improve our town. And so I see that, and I get really excited about it, because I am a vision guy. I love being able to see what people see, and then I think what my greatest contribution is being able to take vision seen and help bring it to vision realized. And so my reason for wanting to be on this board as a volunteer assistant is to really help Norfolk see the vision that it has for itself fulfilled. And in addition to just being a resident here, I'm also a licensed real estate broker. So that gives me kind of some inside, not connections, but inside conversation and dialogue around, with other residents in Norfolk, and kind of a touch point there on the town and what's going on and what people are thinking. And I'm raising my family here. I've got 4 kids, and I just really want Norfolk to be the very best town that it can be. And I love the vision that I've seen, and I think I could be an asset to help bring that vision to reality. And you guys, or whoever created that video or planned that video, called it a strategic plan concept. And my goal, my hope is to help see that concept actualized. And I think I could help you guys or whoever it is actually make that happen.
Okay. You broke up on the Zoom a little bit. I think you started to say that you had some commercial holdings in this town, in Norfolk, so you're familiar with commercial, which there isn't a lot of in this town, and that seems to be always a talking point, whether with the ZBA for applicants and neighbors and things like that. So I don't know if you can comment on that at all, on commercial and how you talked about vision and planning and things like that, but I just want to get a sense from you that you understand, and I know you do, but you hear it from you that you understand that the ZBA's charter is to recognize the will of the people through the zoning bylaws that were adopted at town meeting, and interpret those and enforce those rules and regs in a fair way. More than a plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than the 40Bs, which more of have a little bit of a planning component to them, but typically a lot of what we do is more reactive. It's a secondary look, it's an appeal, that type of a thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably the starting line for everything. Are you hearing me okay still, or
Yep.
do I
For the
need to
most
try
part,
and
yep.
get better Wi-Fi? We're good. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably the starting point of it, is that the zoning rules and regs that are in place they've got to be reviewed, interpreted, and decided upon. But as that happens, I think that that they're in place to help see these plans and these concepts, come to life, come to fruition.
Any questions?
No, I'd be interested in knowing, just curious where your commercial holdings are. Are they on 115 or are they on Pine Street?
One is on Union Street and the other is on Rockwood Road. So literally right 2 rotaries away from one another. They're right on the same street, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
No, just congratulate you on your 4 children. It's always good. I have 4. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you still have time to serve. I find that pretty, unless they're old like mine, I don't know.
14 down to 6. So we're full speed ahead all the time. But I have to be selective with how I spend my time, and this is important enough to me to make the time to be a part.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So we can transition to,
Sure, we have a 7:45. Oh, you have Mr. DePlacido.
yeah,
I
we
believe he's
just
here.
have them, now we'll just take them in the order for which they're on the agenda.
Sure.
The first item on the agenda is the request for minor modification to the enclave for the mail box. I'll call it structure, I guess.
Mr. DePlacido, if you could join us, that'd be wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure what the board was gonna have for presentation, so.
Okay. This is great. Is this something you have available on the screen also?
I have the, yeah, I have the.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have the mailbox structure. I don't know, let me see if I have the,
It's all yours, Tom.
Good evening, for the record, my name's Thomas DePlacido here with DDC Village Green LLC, and this is in regards to the enclave at Norfolk, Avery Way off of Village Street, Village Green Street, sorry. And basically, when the 40B project was approved here, this is a 40-unit age-restricted development, it was permitted with, you can actually see the highlighted area on the first page. And all I wanted to do in all this is just showing the locus of where this mailroom was gonna be placed, that's all. It was approved with a parking area and basically a mail kiosk, sort of outside that you see with the mailboxes that are there. And really all I wanted to do was enhance it. I feel if people are getting their mail, especially in an age-restricted development, they should be able to get their mail and stand under a roof and not get wet, and have some place that's a little bit more tasteful than just a gray box on the side of the road. So all I'm doing is proposing to build this structure. It's approximately 18 feet by 8 feet. It doesn't even require a building permit. It would be a slab in some place where people can stand under, get their mail, and then the only other thing that we're gonna have is a little storage area, and that's basically just for an irrigation control, because we're gonna have irrigation throughout the project with the well. So basically, that was all we're trying to do, is we just needed permission to build this small structure.
And it's generally in the same location of where you were approved to put the mailboxes originally. And that-
Exactly. In fact, if you look at the mail structure itself, the only thing different is the 2 or 3 mailboxes you see underneath the covering, those would be out in the open. So basically, we're just trying to make a roof over it, like I said, so that people don't have to stand in the rain. And I just thought it was important that you realize where this was on the plan, and that's why I provided that for the board tonight.
No lighting there?
There would be a light underneath, just so people come, this time of year when it's dark at 5 o'clock, if somebody's coming home, should have some, for safety reasons, some type of overhead light, which actually you would not have had if it was just a mailbox out side of the road.
It's nice.
We're just trying to improve on something, that's
No,
all
I-
we're trying to do.
Thank you for bringing that forward to us tonight. Any questions for Mr. DePlacido?
No, but I like your development.
Thank you,
But I think it's one of the good 40Bs. Throw it out there.
thank you.
Josephine, anything?
I'll second.
So I think we need to vote this as a minor modification, Rick?
Yes.
So we get a motion to approve Mr. DePlacido's minor modification to the Enclave Norfolk Comprehensive Permit to allow construction of a complementary mail structure.
I second that.
I'm thirded.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now moving on to the next item, we have Mr. DePlacido relative to Abbeville Development LLC, a request for approval of a regulatory agreement. Maybe, Rich, maybe you give us a little bit of background on that also.
Sure. In terms of all the comprehensive permits that have been issued, the companion to them is a regulatory agreement, which provides the monitoring and the requirements of it in terms of how many units, so you can scroll through it. I did have it reviewed by town council, which is, in this case, they use the standard template, which Department of Housing Community Development has utilized for all their 40B projects as it stands. And council reviewed it, it's in line, there's no question, it's pretty standard practice, so there isn't anything surprising, it just refers how the comprehensive permit talks to the regulatory aspect of the 40B project.
Would you like to add anything to that? That'd be wonderful.
I think the town plan has actually explained it pretty properly. This is actually, let me back up just for a second. I'm putting on another hat here. This is representing Abbeville Development LLC, which I'm the manager of, and this is for Waits Crossing, and it's a regulatory agreement. This is a standard template agreement that's issued by Mass Housing. It's pretty much standard for probably every 40B in the state. If there was a 40B that was approved and had a different regulatory agreement, I'd be surprised. The only thing that we really fill in here is recording information, dates when projects are approved, and some of the financing mechanisms and things that we're working with, and who's going to be doing the lotteries, the affordable housing monitoring, and just that format there. And basically, we have a closing next Tuesday on this, and would ask the board if we could get the board's signatures. Just so how this follows through is that I sign on many places of this as the developer. The board signs as the approving authority on this, and then it goes to Mass Housing, and they have quite a few other documents they sign that are exhibits as part of this as well that I also sign, and then the whole document goes to the registry to be recorded. So it'll be a public document at that point in time. So being a public document that goes to the registry, the board's signatures would have to be notarized as well. What I do is I make 4 copies, so there's 4 originals, and I give them to Mass Housing. So then what I would do is give the town back an original copy too, and Mass Housing sends them back to me.
So, Richard, this is something that we sign, we have to have it notarized, be something we could do tomorrow or in the office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. You can do it later.
Okay. I'd open it up to the audience if there's any questions on this issue, or any of the board members. Seeing none.
For any, I do have up on the screen the attachments associated with
Okay.
the regulatory agreement for your
Yep.
information.
From my understanding, this is just boilerplate as part of what's already been approved,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
This is just a formality for
So one that can,
realistically
For recording
financing.
purposes and.
right, so what?
It's realistically for financing, right?
It's because the financing is through the New England Fund, which is 25%. 25% of the financing is the New England Fund. This regulatory agreement is part of the mass housing permitting process with it. If we scroll the screen down just for a second, nope, the other way, up. Let's go slow, there's a list, hold on, the attachments. Basically, just run it through these real quick. The legal description is the boundaries of the property. The affordable housing restriction mortgage, those are standard documents that those actually are recorded with each affordable house so that they're actually an affordable house in perpetuity. The unit location plan was actually something that I worked with the Norfolk Affordable Housing Trust to locate and evenly disperse the housings throughout the development. The limited dividend monitoring services agreement and the affordable monitoring services agreement are basically, same thing again, template documents from mass housing that are in every regulatory agreement. And the last thing is list of approved subordinate loans. So what happens is that this document is recorded first and foremost. It has priority over any other document, mortgages and everything. So even if a bank or an entity or something were to take over the project, this never disappears. The town's always protected and mass housing's always protected.
Very good.
And it was a condition of the
Yeah, it's a
permit for
condition.
the regular, right, so.
All right, so can we get a motion to approve the request for the approval of the regulatory agreement relative to the Abbeville Development LLC?
I make a motion to approve the regulatory conditions for Abbeville LLC.
Any discussion? Second.
Second, I said
Any
it.
discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 So for his purposes, we should be able to have this signed and notarized for him.
Yes,
Just check in with you tomorrow.
yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
So, next on the list is a request for modification to Boyd's Crossing.
Okay.
There are, three items of discussion. One is installation of lights in terms of not installing all the lights that were part of the original lighting plan for the development. Second item is to not construct and place the bus shelter was part of the original approved plans. And then the last item is in terms of discrepancy in terms of the curbing that's been
Okay.
installed at the development for Boyd's Crossing.
Okay.
Want to take them in the order?
I think we should, just take them in order maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So let me get the,
Request for modification to Woods to not install some of the exterior lights.
yes.
So the applicant is here this evening? Please join us.
Want us to sit here? Is that
That'd be
best?
wonderful, wherever you're comfortable, sure.
I think, with the exception of Courtney, I think the rest of the audience is from Boyd's Crossing, I think.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Very good. So if you want to identify yourself and tell us about your request?
Yeah. So I'm Owen Kelly. I'm with Powerhead LLC, the builder for this site. The first item on the agenda is a lighting plan put together with the trustees at Boyd's Crossing. This was actually put together by Michael Baskin. It's a proposal for a variation of the lighting compared to what was originally installed. So the original lights include pretty much every colored item on there, including the ones with the little X's. And then I'll stand up just to clarify. So all these lights here, all these lights here, all around the outside, the red dots, and then including all the green ones, X's or no. The lights without X's in them are already installed on the site, and the pink marks are lights proposed by between us and the trustees as like the remaining lights to go into the site. The discussion being had is obviously the lighting is there to create easy access throughout the site for both the homeowners and any kind of visitors. Now that the subdivision is up, we seem to be in agreement that, like I said, they actually proposed this to us to provide an adequate amount of lighting. And just as a basic, breakdown of the change, instead of the 20 or so streetlights around the outside of the subdivision, they're proposing 7, pretty much at all of the major corners and parking spaces.
Okay.
And then instead of the streetlights along this main strip here, we are proposing, we're gonna put in photo sensing lights on the front of all the houses. So the homeowners, so all the houses in the front there will light the front street.
And that's identified by the pink, so I
These
can't see
little
the
pink-
X.
These little pink stars
Yep.
around the circles.
Those are the changes with the pink and the.
Correct, exactly.
What, you're the developer, what's the change? Why did you choose to change from the plan the zoning board approved originally?
So we have the piping in to put in all the streetlights around the outside. It would just be a lot of light. And so the idea was this would be an adequate amount of light that will allow travel, but won't necessarily turn the place into a baseball field at night.
Yeah, if you wanna just, grab a mic, that was just for people at home, that's. Just turn it on. I think it should be on.
Okay, I'll just introduce myself
Yeah, please
very
identify
briefly.
yourself.
I'm Michael Baskin. I live at 53 Boyd's Crossing. I've been a resident at that location for, it'll be 2 years in December. I'm by profession an architect. I've got quite a number of decades. I won't bore you with my whole CV. I did review this lighting plan that I discovered was on file because there were some dark locations left behind that were in need of lighting, especially as Owen noted in the corners. As he mentioned, the ballpark reference, this would have looked like Gillette Stadium for Monday Night Football if they put in all that light. So I reviewed it, I made the markup to this drawing, and I suggested to Owen that, we would not object, we, the committee, I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, would not object to modifications to the lighting plan that was filed by Powerhead with the town. And I will remind you that we don't, as a Board of Trustees, really have a direct role in all of this because the agreements are between Powerhead, Norfolk, and I guess the state under the 40B regulations. We as homeowners have no part in that agreement. We are only here to say to you that we've reviewed this and we have no objections to these changes.
Now, do you speak for the board, the association, or are you speaking on behalf of yourself?
We, the association, we're 4 resident members, the Board of Trustees for the Homeowners Association. Owen is the 5th member at present.
So it hasn't been turned over to you wholly yet, solely? He's still a voting board member of
Correct.
the association?
Correct.
If there's anybody else who's either on the board or a resident there who would like to speak towards this, I'd be happy to entertain that.
Hi, I'm Barbara Sneed at 2 Boyd's Crossing. We moved in 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago now, and I can fully support this change because having lived in the front part where all the lights are, when I wake up in the middle of the night, it's like going to the airport. So we've all talked about the lighting situation, and there are some dark areas, but it is a very well lit area, even around the. So I'll just speak
We can hear you.
loudly.
Yep.
So I think also, it's also an issue of just the lighting coming into everybody's houses too. It's just, it can be overwhelming. So that's why these changes were suggested. We've all talked about it.
Which has.
Still, my question, my original question hasn't been answered. My original question was, why did you as a developer decide to turn yourself from going by the plan that was approved?
So we haven't made a decision yet. We just haven't put all the lights in. So before we finalize putting the lights in, we're coming to the board to seek a modification. All the is there for all the lights. We could desire, but before we put in any, we figured we would base with the board. And we in our experience typically do wait towards the end of the project as we see how much light is on the building and how it takes shape for this exact reason.
So when you designed the property, did you not have the illums calculated by somebody else or anything else of that sort?
So at the beginning of the project, there was a conversation between our landscape architect and the town's landscape architect, and this was the proposal.
Okay.
With everything, it is much easier to make an assessment in person.
Rich.
So to sum it, I think the sense is it was over-designed in terms of lighting level that was shown in the plan, right? I mean, that's really, sounds like. Maybe at the design level, they would have kind of thought it through perhaps a little bit more, I guess. I don't know, yeah.
I don't know. I would assume that whoever designed it and put the lighting out there calculated the blind spots, the dark spots, everything else. And the town is more concerned with safety of people on the road than whether lights coming in your living room. I'm sorry to say that, but it's more of a safety issue to have more lighting than not enough. I do manage condominiums, and every single condominium I manage doesn't have enough lighting. And there are always dark spots. And so as the board, years later, after the developer's gone, ends up having to put lighting in places that they didn't have it. It's easier to take it out than to put it back. So as a board, I'm suggesting to you, allow him to put them in and then remove them if you want to, because then that's your dime. His dime is that he needs to provide it for you. Okay? So there's darkness, as you noted. He needs to put that lighting in. Now, you might want different sources of light somewhere in the future, but let him put what has been approved there and then go from there. Because I really do believe you're gonna want the light more so than you don't. Because there are gonna be those nights when Mrs. Smith comes home and she can't see. Because the photocell on Mrs. Jones hasn't turned her light on. And so Mrs. Smith takes out her garbage cans and everything else. It happens. It happens more often than you know. But if those lights are completely controlled by one circuit, it's a better light. Because there are homeowners that, as you probably all know now, living in a community of many homeowners on top of each other, that don't necessarily adhere to all the rules. And they don't necessarily keep their lights lit when they need to. Whereas if you have post lamps, everybody's in control of those, and they're gonna say, hey, get this one lit. So I think it's more advantageous for the community to have him put the lights in that were designed, and then you can take them out. You can go up and do it, but our job is to make sure that he adheres to the guidelines we set forth.
If I may, I might suggest that perhaps the developers in this case want to go back to their design team. There's an electrical engineer involved there someplace who can then put together a
since we're gonna have a few other issues to address here on the same project, before we get into my general thought as a board member is, it might be beneficial to this board, particularly myself, if we took a site visit out there, whether it's in daylight or both evening daylight, and if we did it as a board, we could meet with the developer, with the representation. I'd be all in favor of that. If I start reading schematics, I'm gonna fall asleep, I'm not gonna understand it, I'm gonna appreciate it, but I think,
That's what I do for a living, so.
right, so.
No,
If
I
I,
agree.
if I may say something, when we moved here 4 years ago, I came down and saw this site with a friend of mine who was thinking about moving here. And we did come like around dusk and at night, and I'm assuming that not, like, I mean, are the same lights that are there now were there then, or no?
Correct, correct.
Okay. And we didn't have any, I mean, the houses are very close proximity to each other, and one light is going to have a greater impact than, say, like each house, an acre from each other. They're right next to each other. And we didn't have any trouble finding, the addresses, the numbers on the houses. Some of the houses had numbers at the time. I think there were some front porch lights, there were some motion lights. I knew which ones had the garages. And I didn't, there's nothing that sticks out to me that says, well, there were dark areas, there were light areas. There was a type of thing that I would stick out. But what's really important to note, we gotta look, we have to take this into perspective. Which are the ones that are now there? The ones that don't have an X on it?
Correct, yep.
And look how close the houses are. We have a light here, we have one here that's probably lighting up both houses, we have another one here that probably, they're very close to each other. You need to go there, if you make your site visit, literally right next to each other. So, these two, you would need this light and this light if the next house was an acre away. But since they're so close together, I'm just taking it in perspective.
Yep, yep.
I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
I've been here, and it's kind of small, a little bit, not cramped. I didn't have any visibility issues, knew where the garages were. They did end up not investing here, but, I'm just going by right now. It's a beautiful project.
I think a site visit, for me, would make a lot of sense, would be helpful.
Would be, yeah.
My motivation is really safety. You folks live there, it's a little bit different, it's more than safety for you, it's day to day. I appreciate that, so it sounds like you've already come to a level of understanding with the developer. I have no reason to think that's good or bad or whatever. For me, if I go up there and take a look at it, understand it, walk the site, at dusk, evening, afternoon, whatever, happy to do that. And as long as it's safe, so that, if God forbid, an emergency vehicle has to go up to unit number, whatever, they don't have a dark spot, and they lose time. I think everyone agrees on that, but also, we don't want it doesn't have to be a stadium 24/7.
Might I make a suggestion then to the
Please.
board? Since, like I said, we have the piping in to do all the lights here, and putting in these lights, it's really just choosing selectively which ones to install. Let us go ahead and install those per this plan, and then have the board do their site visit.
Okay.
And so if the board comes out, they'll see what the proposed lighting plan is in real life, and if the board is content with the safety of it, then we can close it out.
Is that okay
I
for
mean,
us to do?
I'm sure that's what they would
We're not
enjoy
approving
too.
the plan, he's just telling us.
No, I know, I'm just,
So, it's a minor modification that they're asking for, and.
and that's what we just granted to Tom, too.
Right, so-
For the
What they're
mailbox,
saying
so
is
in
they're gonna
reality,
show
it's
us
the
what
same
they
So in
thing.
terms of the plan, the only thing that would be newer are the ones that would be on the houses, right, on the homes itself.
Right, exactly, and that, on my end, I'm all right with, yeah, adding regardless.
Because you can say they do it the way they want it, and then it goes.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That was there it goes. That was a discussion, if I may, it'd be easier to point to this than. I'll give you just a quick rundown. These light poles indicated with the X were of a different scale and intensity of light than the ones that were actually installed here, the solid red lights. And anybody who's come in there in the evening when those lights are on, they're brilliant. There's plenty of light coming in. as we go through this area, these lights in front of these units were never installed. One suggestion we made was the possibility that each one of these units here, in fact, each one of these units here where you see the purple stars, have a light fixture adjacent to a door that leads in at the basement level to the units. Those lights, when they're turned on, do provide, I believe, adequate lighting for this whole roadway and this roadway here. Now, you brought up something, sir, that really was on point. There is a question mark as to these lights are controlled by the unit owners, and will they be willing to leave them on? They are LED lights today. I suggested initially to Owen that we replace the switches with timers for each one of these, but it would still leave, frankly, the homeowner the opportunity to turn them off. The actual utilization of these lights, how much power they would utilize, is very, very limited. I find it hard to believe that it would cause very much objection. And even if a certain number of them were left off at night, I believe there's more than adequate light there to begin with. As we get into some of the corners, where you see all these lights out here were left out, this corner gets a little dark, and especially it was of some concern because of the walkway, which you can see a little bit. It's kind of hard probably for you to recognize it from your distance. But I wanted to make sure that there was some light cast out here where the walkway comes out to the main street, for the people using the walkway and for traffic coming through. There are light fixtures mounted on these garages. You can see the sort of gold or yellow color. And those produce a pretty good amount of light as well. We've got them over here at this corner there. So these areas are pretty well illuminated. The question was, in these corners, it was getting a little kind of dark. And if we put in some moderately upscaled light fixtures, that is producing more light than just the small ones that are on the garages, that would probably more than adequately address it. The best way of getting a look at this now is, as Owen suggested, let them go ahead and install these lights as we've proposed them. This one is, by the way, up by the trail that leads through an easement up to the train station. I think that will verify for us that we've got enough light. If we don't, it should not be that much of a hardship for them to come back and add, especially along this row, possibly along here if it were necessary. I really see little likelihood that we would need any more light than that. But
So for this particular issue, if as a board, if we table that issue, let the we're not making a comment, the developers indicated they'll probably do that, invite us out for a site visit with the association, the residents, whoever, and then we can come back and address it then.
Yeah, I think that's,
Seems like a reasonable approach.
All right, so that's the lighting issue for now. Next, Owen, I think you have,
The bus shelter.
bus removal.
Yep.
Help us out with that, please.
So there's a bus shelter proposed for the front of Boyd's Crossing, shown there. We spoke with the trustees. There really isn't a large child population on the site.
Can you just point where?
Oh, yeah,
this
right
is
here.
tough for me to
This
see.
little
Okay,
square right here.
great, thank you.
We really don't see many people like congregating there like we do on other sites. I don't know if the trustees can speak to this as well, because we've talked about it. So our suggestion was to remove it, but it's really up to the board.
Would there still be an area for people, for a bus area? Is it just a shelter you wanna get in? Would it be a pad or something?
Would
Could be a bench or something instead.
we could do benches, absolutely.
So it's really the shelter.
I mean, I'd
We're
probably turn it
we're
more
open to
into
it.
turn it into a public bench in one sense, like you've got up on the common, instead of a bus shelter for children.
So if I may, Larry Petrone, I live at 17 Boys Crossing. I'm also a trustee. I've lived here for 2 years, but I lived prior to that in Norfolk in another house 8 years. So I've been spending most of my good part of my adult life in Norfolk. My grandson lives with my wife and I, and he attends Freeman Kennedy, and so he's one of the children that actually go to his school. There's about, I'd say about 5 or 6 school-age children in our community, and then a few younger children, which eventually will go to the elementary and middle school. The kids do congregate where Owen circled that shelter, and it's a sidewalk, and if there were a bench there, to your point, sir, that would be ample enough for that. We don't necessarily need a shelter there. The buses come right there, and they stop right off of Main Street, so it's sufficient. And frankly, if you were to put a bus shelter there, I don't know how much room you would have there to do that, because there's the sidewalk, there's a very little skirt of grass on the street, and then behind that it slopes up. So even sticking one there would be difficult, I would think. Putting a bench there would fit, I think, nicely, and would be sufficient. And I did talk to a few other the parents about this, and they didn't seem to think a shelter was necessary as well, those who send their kids to school, including a few of the unit owners who are 40B unit owners as well.
Right. Yeah, David's mentioning that if there was not a shelter there, then you might get visited. Yeah, sight lines might be improved if that's a problem. Is the issue with the approved shelter, was it just a cost thing, the maintenance and all that? Was
Well, from my perspective, yeah, I have a little concern about it. So I'm a trustee, and I keep mindful of our HOA, and I've been taking care of the budget, and I'm always mindful of things that are being maintenance night for us down the road. Well, it won't be a nightmare. It will be something that we'll have to maintain, and I'm always concerned about raising HOA fees for good reason, particularly the 40B unit owners.
Right.
And so, one less thing that we have to maintain is a good thing for the community, as far as I'm concerned.
I think even more so when you have an affordable component.
Just in all fairness, this was a plan that was submitted by Powerhead developers, negotiated with this board. I'm not sure if you folks were members at the time. The bus shelter was included. I don't know whether it was strictly considered an amenity for the Boyd's community, or it was also considered to be a potential amenity for some of the other homes with children across the way. What I'm telling you is I'm trying to be very fair about this, because I'm really of two minds about it. I agree with Larry. There are very few children in our development that are making much use of it. I'm out there every morning around bus pickup time walking my dog, and I only see 1 or 2 kids out there at once. I do occasionally see a child from outside of the community there as well. So to get down to the end of it, I also see it not as just as a maintenance issue for the homeowners association going forward, but a potential liability as well, and possibly an attractive nuisance from other people in the neighborhood.
Anything else from the board on this?
What's on the other side of the street, just for curiosity? Is that grassy, or, no, right on the other side of Boyd's Crossing entrance there?
The sidewalk just continues on.
So what's right behind the sidewalk there? I'm just curious. If that one goes uphill, is that wetlands?
It's way down to a pond.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's a steep slope off there.
I live on the corner of Boardman Street, not Boardman, on the Brookside and Seccong Street, and there are a lot of children out there, elementary school age. They wouldn't sit on anything if their life depended upon it, or sit in a thing. And most parents bring them down in a vehicle, so if it's raining or something, they're covered. They get out and they're playing ball in the street in reality. So a shelter, yeah, I think a bench there for people walking to the train or something, or walking their dogs, as you said, to sit and tie their shoe or something of that sort, I think is a better use of space. But
Anything else from the audience? Anybody? I think we have another issue to talk about.
Yes. Let me just, this aside.
concrete curbing was installed versus precast concrete?
Correct.
So help us out on.
Yeah. So the company we use to install curbing, it does it's a form of cast in place, but it's a company out of Connecticut that does like an extruded curbing. So they have a big machine they bring in, and they like mold the curbing specific to the site.
Okay.
We've used them before in other subdivisions. We've used them. They're used all across the state of Connecticut. It's a pretty high-end operation. There's been some concern raised about that type of curbing used versus the precast curbing that was spec'd on the plan. In our view, they are comparable products. But I think the trustees are looking for a determination from the board on that issue.
I'd be happy to hear, before we hear from the board, even from the trustees or any residents.
So in terms of before, I'll let them, in terms of, no,
Go ahead,
just,
Jeff.
just to fill in a little bit.
Yeah.
So the plan was, as approved, had specified a precast concrete on the detail sheet, so.
There is a reason for precast versus extruded concrete. Precast is deeper, it goes into the ground deeper. When a snowplow hits it, it stays in place a little bit better than a formed one. Past experience as a snowplower, I've taken out many curbs, and the precast ones held up almost as good as granite. My plows showed that they held up well.
Do you think precast is a better product?
I think precast is a lot better product than the extruded and or bituminous, mainly because of the depth.
So it lasts longer?
It lasts longer, and it has so it's a bigger product. It's a deeper product. It doesn't get moved as much or broken as quickly in a big shot.
And how long has this curbing been in place?
For about, 4 years, 5 years?
And how's that holding up?
So actually, Rich, do you mind if I share something to the Zoom call? I've got a couple pictures and things like that.
I actually have some photographs.
I can pull up, you can pull up more too, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you,
And I was out there.
Yeah, I'm on the meeting. I just, under Stonebridge.
okay, I could, make you co-host.
Well, first off, I have here a printout from Massachusetts Department of Transportation. It shows a detail of a standard curbstone that they would recommend. It's typically used on all public projects in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that is a curbstone. It doesn't specify whether it's granite or precast in this case, but that is, Mr. Axberg, as you described it, set into the grade.
Yeah, it is. It's set into the grade.
It's typically a 20-inch deep by 6-inch thickness precast stone. More often than not, it's it's provided with reinforcing steel in the stone. It's usually specified at 5,000 psi concrete. And this is an example. This is from Situate Precast Company right here in Massachusetts that produces a lot of material. There's some mention of some specifications there. I pulled out another one from a company in Connecticut. I don't think it's the same firm that Owen's referring to. But again, this is precast concrete, and that is clearly what is called for in the comprehensive agreement. There was a waiver granted to Powerhead on the underlying zoning that required a sloped granite curb. There is bituminous concrete curbing, the Cape Cod berm, which frankly is standing up much better than
It does.
slip form cast in
Plows
place.
slide up over it.
Correct. And it has a certain amount of resiliency to it. Unfortunately, one of the things I have no idea about is what the actual concrete mix consisted of. And I have some examples here of what happens with this stuff when it has been struck. Granted, they haven't got the finish layer of bituminous in place yet. That would have secured it a little bit more, at least on the roadside, but it's still.
So is this actually at Boyd's?
Yes. That's right as you come in off the driveway from Main Street. It's directly across the way from you on the driveway. It goes around and adjacent to where the boxes are. These are, granted, this is not the way it looks everywhere, but this is several of the locations. In addition to which, we just have concrete that now, the most is 4 years old, that is already starting to fall apart, basically turn to sand.
Owen, have you seen these photos?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so
absolutely.
these are accurate photos?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I'm pulling up an album.
Yeah.
Because we've been in discussion, obviously, with the trustees for a long
Sure.
time. We know there are 3 places where there's any kind of major damage to any kind of notable damage to the curbing. All 3 of those came from giant construction side trucks. 2 of them are the last 3 houses we're building at the site, and they happened when we were moving dumpsters and things like that in and out. And the 3rd one is right up at the entrance, and it was a big truck, the same thing, backing in and backing out. Now, we took a look at the original site plan that was, agreed to by the town, and all of the areas that suffered any kind of damage were actually spec'd to be Cape Cod berm, and that's because they're not backed up with sidewalk. So everywhere that there's precast concrete design on the site, it is backed up by a sidewalk. Now, your point about the depth of the curbing makes perfect sense for something that's not supported. When I build a deck and I cantilever it, I have to go back, for every foot out, I have to go 4 feet back down. So the same philosophy applies when you're doing curbing. Hey, if there's nothing supporting it, just grass or something like that, it makes perfect sense that, hey, you need something to counteract that plow movement. However, so that applies to all these areas. However, if I'm building a box that's supported on both ends, it doesn't need the same level of cantilever action because it's supported all the way through. And that's what we see throughout the entire site. Anywhere where the curbing is backed up by concrete, by a sidewalk, you're not seeing any kind of movement, any kind of damage that wouldn't be on like the curbing that's out here in front of the town hall. As far as the product itself goes, there is a difference between the extruded concrete, this process, the company that we brought in, versus just a regular like cast in place doing it with hand forms, and that is it is fiber reinforced, it is air encapsulated, and it's a 4,000 psi. All of the specifications that the MassDOT uses to define precast concrete. So effectively speaking, they are the same product as far as the material goes. Now, as far as the depth goes, David's point definitely stands. So what we're actually proposing to do is remove any places that are not backed by sidewalk, and we will reset them back to Cape Cod berm per the plan. And the other areas we'll leave as the concrete that's there.
So, you're of the opinion that the damage that we're seeing here is due to the fact that it's been hit by heavy equipment?
It is hit by heavy equipment. That is absolutely
Okay.
true. I
So-
know that each of those happen for that reason.
So I'm not an expert on this at all. I'll ask David, who has a lot of knowledge on this area. If there were precast curbing, would you anticipate similar damage?
No. Not even, honestly, they're designed to take a load. They're designed to do that. They most likely are poured with concrete underneath the bituminous just beforehand. And they just don't move outside of some odd scenario. But you talk about trucks running over them. You're talking about a housing development. There's going to be moving trucks on a regular, consistent basis going through there. They're just as heavy.
Yeah, and I'm concerned, because this is, one of my concerns is that this is a 40B, there's an affordability component to it, and 4 years into it,
Yeah.
there's already curbing issues. that could occur again throughout.
So, and thankfully that they're showing up now and you're not gone yet, so you can fix it.
One point I would make too is that I respect Owen's opinion, but if you walk through this development, there are places where there's no Trex hanging it, but there's cracks through the concrete curbing in the back. I live in a corner where there's cracks, it's cracking away from the driveway, so it's not just a result of truxing. It's certainly in the front of the development, there's a lot of spots like that. So this is not going to get better. We're going to see more and more cracks over time, and as it gets near the corners, those pieces of concrete are going to pull away. So it's just going to get worse. We're only 3 or 4 years into this at this point. And to your point earlier, you know, I hate to be the finance guy again, but I think about what we're going to have to do years down the road, and the impact on HOA fees and to the unit owners could be substantial.
So, Rich, can you bring up the link that I'm sharing on the Zoom screen? Can you put that on the big screen here?
On the big screen?
If not, the board can see it.
If I could, I'd just like to add something here too. I mean, Owen speaks of these curbstones being of 4,000 PSI concrete. The state standard specifications from those two fabricators that I left you with both use 5,000 PSI. Definitely do use the fiber reinforcement. I don't know what's in the mix that was installed in our development. The material, given its deterioration after such a short time, suggests to me that it is not 4,000 PSI, certainly not 5,000 PSI concrete, not even 4,000 PSI concrete. I suspect it's somewhere down in the 2,500 range, and I don't see any evidence whatsoever of any fiber reinforcement in that concrete. You would see it where it's cracked. You'd see fibers sticking out if that were the case. So I don't know whether, Owen, you're getting some line from your supplier that just isn't true.
Don't have a conversation amongst yourselves.
Oh,
Just
sure.
direct it to
I'm
me,
sorry.
please.
I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
I just don't believe that this material is at that quality that is implied by the statement that was made about it having been
Again, this
4,000
one here,
PSI.
I think from my vantage point, I'd like to put them all with a site visit, and I'd like to have a chance to review what's been on, what was approved by the town. Because clearly I'm not a curbing expert, but I'm gonna become one soon, it seems like, and that's fine.
So before we get to there, I want to propose something
ahead.
else, and it's something that I proposed to the trustees, because we did have this discussion with the trustees in the middle of summer when we were lining up to finish the subdivision, and we came to an agreement at that time. They submitted a letter to the board in agreement. Now, they are in their right to change their mind after the fact, which they did. But what happened was we had everything lined up to go to finish. I mean, we're essentially wrapping up the project. We had everything go to finish. We put the brakes on it. We're back. We have it still lined up now to finish before the end of the year. However, if we put the brakes on it again, we will not finish before the winter time. This is why it is good that we're here discussing. So what I've offered to the board before, to the homeowners association, and what I want to propose to the board here, is that the lifetime of any concrete curbing, precast or not, is 20 years. We will bear that burden with a warranty. So we are very confident that the product that was put down, again, we've used it. I've got pictures here of a subdivision that was done back in 2008, the exact same company, exact same product. It's perfect throughout. I've got pictures from outside here at the town hall and pictures from the Stop and Shop that does precast near me. It's all precast concrete and it's damaged. But regardless, at the end of the day, both products have a 20-year lifetime, according to any kind of concrete company. What I'm suggesting is they've been in for 5 years. We will warranty them for the remaining 15 years. So that way there is no undue cost on the association, from now until the end of the lifetime of the curbing.
Yeah, my concern with that is quite a bit, is that this is a 40B. We're gonna be in the middle of a situation where there's gonna be a warranty claim, and we could be back at it. My personal view is, I'd like to get the site visit, I'd like to understand it. I'm not sure these qualify cumulatively or individually as minor modifications. But with this 40B component, and also, I'm assuming could be some substantial costs here, and no one disputes there's some damage or repair work needed. I'd first like to take a site view, but I'm really not overly enthused about a warranty. That's my personal view.
Isn't the point, I mean, sorry.
My goal is as a 40B is a ZBA. It's not your contract with the association.
Yep.
My goal is not to have developers or anybody come in and say, I'll give you a warranty if you approve this. It really doesn't give me anything. I'd rather approve a plan, have it built, signed off on that way. That's my proof. That's my warranty. Go right ahead, sir.
My name is Fisher Ash from Powerhead as well. I think just to focus the discussion, we have two different issues here. Number one is the sidewalk, the curbing that is, again, not backed up by sidewalk. Just curbing that which suffered the most damage. What we're saying is on that area, which we have a plan, if you can share it, on those areas where we're proposing is just remove it all and replace it with Cape Cod berm, which is specified in the plan. Cape Cod berm as part of that
If
section.
that's specified in the plan, why not do that?
That's my point with the lighting, too.
If that was.
Who's giving
why
you
not
permission
We
to
have
do that?
we have two different areas. One is an area that is backed up by sidewalk, and one that is not. So the area that is not was originally proposed with Cape Cod berm. Now, we thought it looked nicer to do more
uniform.
concrete curbing and a little more uniformity, so we did that. But that, no question, we'll take that all out and we'll put it back to Cape Cod berm, per the plan.
So these are the two parts. The second part is the area that's backed up by the sidewalk. The area that's backed up by the sidewalk is, the issue that you bring up is very valid. Okay, so if it's hit, if it's down, it will stand. But if it's supported by a sidewalk, it has the same resistance, that support back. So what we're saying is, again, all the area that's not backed up by a sidewalk will remove, and we will Cape Cod berm conformance, nothing to talk about. The issue that the portion of the curbing that is backed up by sidewalk, that is the area where first of all, we can demonstrate that it is 4,000 PSI, okay? And state DOT does have it proposed as 4,000 PSI. We can show you that. Okay? And the 20-year warranty, I understand it's nothing that, it doesn't turn you on, it doesn't comfort you. But the fact is, what we're concerned with is the homeowners and making sure that there is no financial burden on them. So every year by year, it's no claim, no nothing. It's year by year. There's a contract with a contractor. Every year, about this time of year, before the snow season, before the snow plows start, we'll go in, whatever damage it is, and get repaired, and it's done. The reason why this is.
And just to note, on those areas that are backed by sidewalk, we have not seen damage.
We have pictures right here that are damaged.
If we have cracks are gonna show, I mean, if you go, like I said, if you go out front here in the precast in the town hall parking lot, there are cracks in that curbing too. If the goal is to never have a crack in the curbing, switching to precast will not. Our comment is this product is going to survive just as well as any precast product will in the same situation.
The area, the portion of it that is backed up.
By sidewalk. And it has up until this point, and we have other subdivisions that have been installed that have lasted the test of time.
I would remind this board that there's a comprehensive permit Waivers were granted, the detail of which required the utilization of precast concrete set below grade as indicated in that detail right there on the drawings that they submitted that were part of their application.
Yeah, I'd like to take the I wanna have the opportunity to go back, review the permit, review the plans, have a site visit, and continue the discussion.
Yeah, I don't think we can
No, I'm not ready to.
I'll just add one other thing. The Board of Trustees recognizes that Powerhead will be unable to complete the final coat of pavement this season if this continues to go on. And we're quite comfortable with that. It's important enough to us to live with that for another year if necessary in order to ensure that we've got the right product there that will last the test of time.
So going forward, if maybe through Rich McCarthy, if they could coordinate a site visit, board members, Owen, Nishar, whoever wants to be there, since we have the lighting, to whether it's one site visit or two, afternoon, evening, whatever, let's try to get this scheduled to move forward.
Right. We can do that.
Okay.
Any chance, not on the lighting is easy, we can do that anytime.
Well, the lighting is, my understanding, is we're just tabling it.
Right.
We understand you folks are
Any
gonna go
chance-
forward and.
Any chance we can have that site visit like tomorrow?
I can't do it, I know that for a fact.
And we wanna do it as a board, because of open meeting law and so forth, so we need a little bit of
You wanna
coordination.
advertise it, sure.
It's not, could I drive by there? Yeah, I've been out there over the summer, but, so we wanna coordinate it. I wanna have an opportunity to have yourselves there, and these folks too, it's important to everybody, so I can't say at 9 o'clock at night I can schedule this for tomorrow morning.
So we gotta post it anyway, so it's kind of.
One of the,
Yeah, because of the
What-
open meeting law, we'll have to.
one of the other advantages to a precast versus an extruded is years later, you have one that does crack. It happens. You can remove that without having to cut or do anything else. You can remove it, and you can put a new one in. The extrudeds are usually about 2 to 3 times longer than the actual precast that you get. The precast, they could even replace it with something else.
These are actually designed the same method of mine. You can actually see the grooves in there.
Sure. That's a lot longer than a normal precast. But yeah, precasts are normally about 4 feet to 6 feet tops. Those are more like 8 feet. So it does require a little bit more work on a, and then they'd have to dig to replace it because it's not as deep. If you're pulling out something that's, 20 inches deep, it's 20 inches deep when you pull it out. You don't have to do a whole lot more work to it. Whereas if you're gonna try and put a precast in where extruded is, it's not gonna work. You're gonna have a lot more work. So, again, there's reasons for different things.
Rich, is there anybody on the Zoom meeting that would like to
Chime in.
have a question or a comment? And again, I turn it back to these gentlemen before we move on, or anybody. One more.
See any hands up right now? I'm assuming it's your wife. Facing the sea, actually.
That's who it is.
Other than that, besides the board, that's all. That's it. So, no, I don't think so.
Well, this has been, I want to thank the applicant, I want to thank the residents. This has been good discussion. It's been civil, it's been helpful, it's been educational to me. We're gonna take it serious, we're gonna get ourselves out there, look at this, meet with you folks, meet with everybody we can, and try to get the proper resolution.
In terms,
One more comment? Just use that for the.
No, it's for people at home.
cable,
For
the
Zoom
recording.
cable.
I'm Susan Asensio, 64 Boyd's Crossing. Just to summarize, so it's the lighting, the bus structure, and the curbs for the site visit?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
thank you.
In terms of the timing of the site visit, I think you have some work to do with the lighting, so it would probably be 2 site visits, I think, right?
That's what I'd suggest.
Yeah.
Let's do one during the day and one during the nighttime.
Yeah,
So one during the day, shortly for the bus stop and for the curbing.
yeah.
And then one for the night, the lights when those are complete.
Thank you. One more.
Oh, and do you know, like, when the lighting, like how long it takes? I know it's time.
Everything's on site and supposed to get started within the next
Right.
week or two, but
No, I
No,
didn't know.
nothing
So I was just
Take those
curious
issues
for
offline.
the 2 weeks or however. Thank you.
If you have,
yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll send an email around to the board in terms of, because I don't know if you know your schedules at the moment, but, because we do need to do it obviously earlier in the day.
Right.
For the light, so I could send an email around to the board members and just poll you in terms of what's available the next week. And then, I'll let you know, then we can send out.
Right after I feed the cows.
Hopefully your schedule
I'm
works
usually
too,
working out
kinda.
time, so. Right after I feed the cows, I can usually be out there, 7 o'clock, so.
4:30 a.m.
Yeah, I don't feed them. I'm not a milker, so.
Well, thank you.
You have to feed the cows, all right, well.
Thank you.
Alright, so we'll set up a site visit, and then we'll place this back on the next meeting.
Correct. Okay. So moving along, the next appointment is with Owen again and Bishar relative to the Village at Norfolk LLC, a request for minor modification. The Village at Norfolk to locate and construct a garage 4.7 feet to the property line instead of 8 feet, which was the approved setback of the approved plans. Go right ahead, Owen.
Yep, so we have,
I'll pull up the
yeah,
plan.
perfect. In the Village of Norfolk, we have one garage unit, designed for the site. Do you have a copy of the site plan by any chance, or?
Yeah, I do, yep, I can,
It's a little bit easier to kind of see the reference. It is against a piece of town property, between, there's like a small piece of woods between the site and the train tracks. The garage got moved back because of the utilities running in the road, and so it got moved back, and it ended up being 4.5 feet. My understanding is that land, there's no abutter there, I don't know what the future use for that land would be, but, I don't necessarily see a difference between 4.5 and 8.
So if I can just
we'll
give
just
it,
pause for Josie.
sure, why don't we wait when it
Just,
Josie
yeah,
gets-
just, I mean,
just so to be,
oh, yeah.
I'd like her opinion on this, but. There you go. Yeah. Rich, can you just talk about the town land, the butts there? What the
Yeah, in
future
terms
of
of,
that could be, or-
well, in terms of this town piece there, it's part of the town center drainage system, so there's a basin on the land.
Okay,
And as you see the rail bed comes through, there's a drainage pipe, comes down, there's a basin right here, and then there's another drainage pipe that then flows out.
and
to,
and where's the garage located?
It's, right here.
Okay, so,
Just gonna draw a circle there.
so what?
Is the structure built already?
Yes.
The structure size didn't change. It was, if I'm.
Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Owen, my understanding is that during construction, utility company, cause you're kind of at that whim with the utility companies, they, for whatever reason, they had you move a utility line or locate a utility line.
Your little electrical box is here, and their utility line runs right in front of the unit.
And they dictate that location,
Correct. Correct.
so therefore you had to move the building back.
Yes.
But
We just put it just to the outside the
to
lines
where you
there.
had to put it to accommodate the utility line.
Yep.
So the size of the structure didn't change.
Right.
But for the fact of the utility line, and that was at a request of the utility company?
Correct. Not necessarily per the request. When we got there and they, marked everything and said it, it was.
Okay.
They messed up. The utility company messed up. They could've put it in the right spot and didn't, in reality. And when Owen got there afterwards, to put the garage in, you can't put the garage over the utility line.
And so that, just for the record, that's a garage, it's for vehicles, no one living there, no one living above it.
Correct.
There's no real noise coming out of it, there's no illumination off the back.
Nope.
Not a height issue, it's not casting shadows on a neighbor. No odor, so it's just, I went out there, I walked behind, it's heavily wooded. When I was there, it was tough to determine the lot line, cause the fence is there.
Fence is inside the
Yeah,
lot line
they
by about
jogged it
2-3
because of-
feet, yeah.
They jogged it because of, probably the trees, I guess, I don't know, so, in any event, I don't see the harm to the town, I don't see a harm to anybody out there, even if there were a house next to it, I'm not sure there'd be harm to in the butter for that one, because in my view, it's, doesn't cast a shadow, doesn't create noise, it's not unsightly, it's not bigger than what it was intended to be.
Again, somebody goofed up.
But I think to your
we're-
concern about
we're
a minor
what-
modification,
I don't even think
I
you can
think
do
it
it.
qualifies, but
Yeah.
based on the fact pattern that I understand, and the fact that there's really no harm to anybody, these gentlemen didn't build something bigger,
Well,
higher.
in terms of the modification, it'd just be
It's a
the issue.
setback issue.
Yeah, it's a setback.
We get
'Cause
a
the pla-
waiver to go from 10 feet to 8 feet or
Yeah,
something like
that-
that,
yeah.
so.
Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak to this, whether in public or on Zoom?
See anybody on Zoom? Well, you can see too. We have 6 people total right now at the moment,
So we'll have to wait for Josephine.
so. Yeah. What, just pause a couple minutes then?
Yeah, why don't we just, why don't we, maybe we can just take a 5-minute recess then?
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? We'll take a 5-minute recess. It's 9:07 now. We'll be back 5 minutes.
9:12.
9:12. addressing the issue at the Village of Norfolk LLC. Just a reminder, it was a request for a minor modification. Josephine, I think you had stepped out of the room, but we'll get you up to speed and Owen can help. If you look on the site plan up there, and maybe Owen can point to the garage. We've got a pointer right there. There's an existing, they built an existing garage there. They built the garage according to the scope and size of what they were supposed to build, but they relocated it slightly different than what the original plan called for. Due to the fact, and if I get this wrong, due to the fact that the utility company had run a utility line that required they couldn't build in that area, so they had to move it back. They pushed it back the least amount they could, but now instead of being 8 or 10 feet from the property line, which was originally on the plan, 8 feet was the design, they're 4.7 feet. And the abutter there, that corner of that abutter is town of Norfolk property. And Rich, I think, has indicated that you have the MBTA line and a drainage ditch out there. So in all likelihood, we'll never see residents for another use there. The height of the building hasn't changed, the size of it. I find it to be a request for a minor modification because in my view, there'd be no harm to the abutter of the town or anybody else who bought that, because there's really no noise, odor, lighting, anything unsightly from that garage being 4.7 feet off the property line. So it's not an encroachment, it's just closer than what the plan called for. And these gentlemen have come forward just to ask for a minor modification to allow that garage to be at the 4.7 foot. Is that fair to say?
Can you pull that other picture up that you had, the garage as-built?
Oh,
Yeah, that one. Owen, that says it's a garage foundation as-built, and the future parking, paved parking, is that what still future parking? And so that's the edge of the bituminous in front of the parking, is that correct? In front of the garage?
Correct.
Why can't you move forward?
So what those G and the W there are not actually where the gas is. The gas and the electric, that was the original proposed. The electric company originally was designed to be on the inside of the site, but the electric company chooses where they want to go, and they move to the outside of the site. So if you drive over there, they put their transformer right here.
Okay.
And so we actually had to slide, we're actually closer to these parking spaces. We actually slid down this way, and then their piping runs right in front, so we had to be back about a foot or so from where it was originally. So it came down and back.
So is that not an as-built there?
That's an as-built laid on top of the proposed plan.
So do you have an as-built for where the gas lines are now?
So, we do for the gas, well, I don't know if we have an as-built
Gas
for the
and
gas. I don't think I don't think they do an as-built of the gas line. They put the gas taps in, but.
Reason, because from what I see there, it's still, you have enough room. And my problem is with a setback. There was already a modification from the very beginning from a 10 to 8. Now, you built it within even closer than the 8, which was already a modification.
So you basically originally from 10 to 4.7.
The electrical.
Less than half of what is in the town our job is to adhere to the bylaws that the town has set forth. And the town set forth 10-foot buffers. We made the modification for 8 feet because of the density, most likely, of the population and what you were trying to build and where the roads were and everything. And I can understand that. But I can't understand why you're now coming to us and saying we need 4.5 feet. I don't understand that. Okay, I understand the gas line came in and they put it in where they put it. But I have developments that are right on the edge of gas easements that, I mean, we're within inches of the gas easement, not, and we have gas lines that run
That's what I'm
through all
saying.
kinds
This-
of places.
This is
so-
not the it's the electric that's on this side, not the gas.
Okay.
And the electric is right here.
Okay,
Right, it is like, we can't go, if we go any further, like electric is in, and we put this system as close to the garage, as close to that electric as we could possibly go.
according to whom?
According to the electric installer.
And why didn't the electric installer go toward the middle of the street more? Just asking. I
don't know. The way that for the electric process works is we get an approved plan from the town.
Yep.
We send that to the electric company. The electric company chooses where they put their electric. Even if I say electric's on this side and gas is on this side of the road, it doesn't matter. The electric company chooses which side of the road, where their electric runs.
Sure, you give them an easement.
Yep.
And they have to be within that easement.
Well, no, they have an easement for the whole site. That's how easements.
Is that Norm?
Well, it's the challenge is, it's all one parcel.
It's one lot, it's
Yeah.
one parcel,
Okay.
it's not an
Yeah.
individual house lot.
Yeah, so
So
there is
they-
no layout for a
We give
street.
them an easement over the whole thing to
Yeah.
lay their lines.
Right.
But, I just,
I understand your frustration.
yeah, I just, to me, it's, whatever. I don't like the idea, but that's all right. I mean,
guess
you're,
what you're suggesting,
my,
but
my problem
Is
is,
when these happen before they get built.
yeah, I mean,
Fair.
We're
I
here.
mean, in reality, you've built a lot of housing in Norfolk.
That's
And
absolutely fair.
there's stuff that, comes up in those housing projects. Why not come to us before it happens?
And I'm happy to do that. I absolutely am. I where this would have been is, if I had an option to get closer, I would have.
Maybe I need to go-
Going forward with small stuff, I will absolutely come to the board.
This isn't the first time I've sat in on a hearing and, we've talked about something like this. I mean, it's the first time I've seen you, but it's not the first time I've seen the buildings.
Yep.
It's probably going forward, it would be wise to discuss before you build any permanent structures.
I mean, from the farmer's porch over on Cleveland Street, right? You did that development too, is that correct? I mean, that was part of the plans. That was part of the deal. Now we've got this, we have lighting and curbing at another site. It's like you think you can just do what you wanna do, and I don't like that.
So just to be clear, because I do think we work really hard to match the standards. The lighting conversation is not a change that we're coming after the fact. It's a change we're coming before the fact.
I agree.
The curbing one, in our professional opinion from years and years of building, they're the same. It's not a bait and switch. It's our professional opinion that they will last the same, and that's why we're willing to back it up with our own funds. And as far as the question about the farmer's porch go, there is a legitimate difference between two plans that were in the approved permit. And we came to the
I
board.
asked that we just,
Oh, sorry,
as
I'm
a
sorry.
board-
No, I
No,
hear
no,
you.
you were asked, so it's
So-
it's
so-
a fair response, but I just
Well-
asked that we just focus on this tonight. 'cause that's
So what
what's
I'd like to
before us.
say is that we are making it a goal, to come before the board, and clarify things. I do think on its merits that this is a minor change, that won't be a detriment to anybody. But for the future changes along this line, as quickly as we can find them, we'll bring them to the board first.
I share your frustration, I'd like to focus it on this though.
No, I completely agree, but my frustration comes with that now that's at half a distance, whereas the town
But
has
this is
said
what-
that we're
this-
supposed to be
yeah,
10 feet.
But this
and
is
we
what's
gave
in front of
8.
us tonight, and,
I know.
and the reason that I'm of the opinion I look at whether it's the right analysis or not. I've seen some examples of what a minor modification could be, but I think because, in my estimation, there's no harm. One test could be, there's no harm to the abutter. And that, if it was something that was throwing off noise, you can make a stronger argument or light or odor. It's not an encroachment, it's just within, it's a 40B, so you're gonna have a lot of waivers. This is a waiver that got extended twice, that's my personal view. But I'd like to have seen this before it was built, of course. And I'm not gonna get into whether I think there's good faith or bad faith, I'm not sure that's the test for us. I think we'll just deal with what we have in front of us. As frustrating as it can be. Did you have any questions, Josephine?
No.
All right. So that being said, does somebody want to make a motion? I entertain a motion to approve the minor modification. For the reference here, bear with me. For the Village at Norfolk LLC, their request to approve their request for a minor modification at the Village at Norfolk to locate and construct a garage 4.7 feet to the property line instead of 8 feet, which was the approved setback on the approved plan. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Yes.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Is there anybody in the audience? Is there anybody on Zoom that hasn't been heard from that'd like to be heard? Apparently not.
See hands raised.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
So we'll have to look at our,
No, it carries.
Okay.
It's a 3. You only need 3 votes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Have a good night. So I believe that takes care of our, I'm looking at the agenda, of our public hearings for this evening.
Covered all the updates. The only thing left is the 10 Old Poppy Attic.
Yeah, and we also have the applications that were submitted to the selectmen.
Correct. The associate member.
Yeah, so if we liked, I wouldn't mind taking that if we want to discuss that. Sure. We've had 2 applicants, why don't we talk about them individually? I think have a good evening.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome
You're welcome to
but
stay,
I
it's a
mean,
public
you wanna
meeting.
stay.
He doesn't want to stay, but I'm curious. Go ahead.
You're welcome to stay. We're gonna try to deliberate a few things. It's a public hearing. We're happy you're here. Okay, so the first is we have the application from Courtney Starling. She's applied through the select board seeking an appointment as an associate member for a 1-year term to this board. Bailey, me, Courtney is very qualified, enthusiastic, new to the town. I think she'd be a great asset to the town, to the board. She brings a lot of expertise and knowledge and I think just a positive attitude overall. So I personally, I'd like to make that recommendation that the select board appoint her for a 1-year term as associate member.
How many vacant slots?
We have 2.
We have
There's
two
There's
associates.
Yeah, it's 2.
openings right now for associate members, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would too, yes.
Do we wanna put that to a vote that we can make, then we can have a formal vote?
Yeah, and I
on that?
can prepare a letter and send it to the select board.
Yeah. So that,
Do you want to put it all in one letter for both of them, or do you want to do
I'll do separate.
it's separate.
Yeah,
Okay.
separate.
Okay, we'll look at that with the
Sure.
individual. So do we have a motion to?
I make a motion to
People rec-
affirm our acceptance of Courtney as a good candidate to associate position for the zoning board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So Richard drafts a letter,
Well, and I'll prepare and have you can come in and sign it.
and then we had the pleasure of another applicant, Tyler Tullos. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Just to recap, I think Tyler's been in town for a couple of years now. His family's here, he's here, he's got some real estate holdings, and I think that piqued his interest, some commercial real estate holdings. I think that was part of what piqued his interest. Seems to have his motivation seemed to be involved with the town, and this was kind of near and dear to him. And his level of expertise was that he's a real, he's a, assume for lack of a better term, real estate investor. He does have holdings. I like the fact that we have Courtney, who has a lot of credential. I like a diverse board. I like different opinions.
Yes,
I like
yes.
different views. I'm not gonna put words into Tyler's mouth that he didn't say, but we can draw our own conclusions of what we thought. So I'd like to hear what you folks like. And I do think it's important for us to try to get a full board with associate members.
He's pleasant as well, he seemed also enthusiastic, and anybody who has 4 children is willing to spend some time in his board. I'm definitely, I mean, I have 3, and I'd barely make it here with my job, so yes, definitely.
I think he brought a lot to the table, and in reality, like you said, there's not a huge line of people pounding on the door to say, we'd like to be on the zoning board, so he's willing to serve a year as an associate. Let's go with that route. I agree.
Do we have a motion to make a recommendation to the select board, a favorable recommendation of Tyler Tellis for a 1-year appointment as an associate member?
I make that motion.
Do we have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
I wanna thank that, if they're watching on Zoom or whatever, I wanna thank both Courtney and Tyler for making themselves available, presenting themselves, and we'll see what the select board does. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think the only other deliberation we have on the agenda for this evening is 10 Populatic Way. It was a request for a special permit.
Mhm.
The agenda says permit modification. I think that's because of the nuance of, is it a modification or is it a new application? I think we treated it as really a new application from something a couple of years ago that wasn't acted on.
Yes, it was,
Yes.
and it was also, the extension last time was, it didn't go through a hearing process from going from, alteration to a demolition and construction.
So I think in your packet, just to refresh your memory, because we haven't, it's been a while since we reviewed that, and closed that hearing.
The only thing is, I may pause, there isn't 4 years here, so I don't know.
Oh,
I think we can't deliberate it, the board can't deliberate it.
okay, then we'll have,
So we're gonna have to postpone
we'll
it.
have to postpone
The
that.
table it, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
to the 17th, I think about it.
But in the meantime, to my fellow board members, you know, we have a draft of
Yep.
some findings, so
Yeah.
forth.
If you have any comments, you can email me ahead of
Yeah.
time too, and I can address them, so.
And, we should be refreshed on that for our next.
Did you go
next time.
down there, Josie?
I did, and actually, a couple, I mean, it's tight, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you, no, that's why I just noticed the same things that I was thinking, am I gonna go down and send an email, repeat the same thing?
Yeah.
It's here, so, yes, it is tight.
It's very tight. I took the farm truck down there and it was like, that might have been a mistake, I should have taken the small car. There was a car parked in the like the turnaround
My
area
dog was
that's
barking
right there, I
all
was
the way,
like,
we were
holy
trying to
cow.
get by.
It's a unique area, so in all seriousness, when we get to deliberate this, keep that in mind, because we might want conditions on there, because there are residents at the end of their property.
Yeah, there's just one, right?
And we're
There's
gonna
one at the end, yeah, well, there's a home, but there is another resident that has property that accesses.
Okay.
It's a
Populated
unique
farm.
spot, narrow, challenging,
Yeah.
so
It is.
when we deliberate it and make a decision, let's keep that as a good
Yeah,
point.
definitely.
I'm glad
Oh my gosh.
everybody had a chance to sit down.
I
Yeah.
did, it-
Although, I did drive away saying to my wife, going, man, why do people buy land in Maine and New Hampshire when you got this in your backyard? You buy something over here and you can go have the pond and still,
Beautiful,
you
yes.
know, still have a
This
house.
is more
and-
remote than Maine, right?
Yeah. It is. I mean,
It's
in
unique.
one sense, more unique.
No, it's
than
like you're in Maine, but you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
And it's
Yeah.
a 5-minute drive instead
Yeah.
of 3 hours with the kids
Sure.
going, are we there yet?
Yeah,
Right, Josie?
No.
right,
All right, so we'll need another board member here to deliberate that and vote on that.
yeah, so we'll have to hold off to the,
And then
So do we have to make a motion to postpone that?
no,
Well,
we'll
that's
just carry
just
it forward. You
deliberation.
still have, so in terms of, you have 90 days, you have to close the hearing, so you're well within that, so.
Okay.
we'll put it back on the agenda for next month.
We previously approved the meeting minutes, new and old business. Review and sign the Mass Housing Regulatory Agreement for Waits Crossing. Is that something we can do this evening?
Yeah, we can,
Yeah, I think you have that, right? No, we just have to.
And then we have 35 Pine Street, final plans for endorsement.
for endorsement, yep.
And then for discussion, we have a line item here, discuss zoning bylaw recodification.
Yes, oh, that's right, that was the last item I didn't get to, in terms of, so I sent to with the Google Drive, the manuscript for the zoning bylaw recodification, which also includes all the general bylaws. The quick overview is, the bylaws will be reorganized in terms of more of a standardized format that you see frequently in communities, and then it'll be renumbered, so it'll be a numeric organization of it instead of alphanumeric the way it is now. And then in terms of, once you'll see, like in some cases there might say building commissioner in one sense and building inspector in the other, and make sure terms are consistent throughout that. And then if there's anything that rises up that may be in conflict with state statute or federal law, they point those things out to us too.
So who's going through that, Rich?
So so town council is going through it as well. So E-Code is a company that
Okay.
the town hired to do the recodification for both bylaws. But what comes out of it is the bylaws will be searchable document for anybody on the website. So if you go other towns and look at E-Code, you can insert, something like put in a keyword.
Okay.
You can find them all, and then there's citations to it. So it's
So
quite.
is it, when you've seen these with other towns going through this process of coming up, is it your opinion that the bylaw now is now more user-friendly?
It is more user-friendly.
And you can research and do your own and.
Yeah,
go through
there is, yeah. So in terms of, I think some, I'll have to take a look and see, but some sections, they do get reorganized. There's really not content changes to it, so it's not like we're making substantive
nothing's-
changes to the bylaw.
So this comes to a draft back to the planning board and town
Yeah,
review and.
Yes,
And then it goes to town meeting?
It will go to town meeting, it'll go to the advisory board, so town council will review it. And so on the meeting on the 14th of December, we're talking about that too, with town council.
So is this something you would envision that possibly in the spring or next fall, or?
The target is for the spring,
Okay.
yeah, to get it done. So hopefully we can get it done by then. If not, we would push it to the
You
fall.
wouldn't do a special town meeting for that?
No. Make it part of
Yeah, okay.
our, ordinary business in terms of the annual or the fall town meeting. But the target is for the spring.
Do you know, have a lot of towns start doing this? Is it?
Yeah, there are quite a few towns. I'm trying to think how many there are. I mean, there's
Makes
a
a
good
lot of
amount
sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes it a lot more searchable, and then you have more references in terms of changes to the bylaw get included in there too.
That's what I was gonna get
So in
at,
terms of, look back, okay, this change was done certain date, is it grandfathered or not, that
That's been
information's
a point,
available.
you read the bylaw, and
Right.
you don't know when it was put in place.
Exactly.
Right? And
Yeah.
then, that's one major issue.
It is,
And
yep.
then- And then we also have, we vote in bylaw, we never seem to get rid of anything.
Right.
The regulations get more and more, and then you don't
Yeah.
realize that you're doing this on the general bylaw, you're doing this here.
Right.
And then someone finds something and you try to, it goes
Yeah.
off the rails.
It does.
I don't know if that, because it's the.
We're not doing that, I mean, we're not
This
going.
isn't part of that view. Would this bring any of that to light?
It can, and it's things that we would probably tackle, but wouldn't be part of this. I mean, that's probably a larger discussion in
Yeah.
terms of the way the town has structured the bylaw over the years, is in terms of, we have this section D, which has the uses, but then we jump to a whole separate section for B1, and then C1, and then the separate districts. Which towns do, but oftentimes they're all one table of allowable uses by the districts, and then your buffer requirements, so you can organize it differently. But we're not doing that yet, so that's kind
Nice
of.
to have at least the citation to win the
Yeah.
adoption.
Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons. I think
To the best
not to go
ability.
too far, but in terms of when you take something and then you put its own section, if you don't supersede it with a new section, you end up with conflicts that unintended consequences.
Right.
And we have found them, unfortunately,
Yeah.
that were like, well, they probably meant to supersede that, but they didn't, you know? So that's the kind of thing. So, but this is step one.
Yeah, okay, good. No, that's a
Yeah.
good step.
Yeah, it is.
So hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah,
Great.
keep you posted, hopefully that gets to the springtime.
Is there any other new business or old business that we should be attending to this evening before we set a date and have that?
No, so your next meeting is, 7th of November.
17th. And hopefully before then, we're gonna have some site visits.
Correct, I'll send out an email.
Hopefully as
Check.
early as next week.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to.
I don't think they'll have lighting done by then, but he's.
No,
not
I think you're
maybe.
gonna be doing one. I think you're gonna do two.
I think
you're gonna have to
what
do
he
two.
mentioned was the light, we're not blessing it saying yay or no, they're gonna kinda go at their own peril.
Right.
And say, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going to do.
I keep going back to one of the first meetings I was at where we had to make a modification grant at I forget who it was for. It wasn't necessarily for them. It was for somebody else. Oh, no, it was for them.
Was for
It was,
them.
it was, yeah, it was the porch.
The farmer's porch,
The
yes.
farmer's porch. And that there was oversight on different people's parts. Who's to blame, I don't know, but it was an oversight. The problem I have is it seems consistent. They take some liberties in one sense. The curbing, that's a big one in my opinion, because I deal with the after effects of it in my own business. So that one's a big one, but lighting is another big one. If somebody falls in one of those parking lots and they find that original plan and there's not enough light, they got a huge case and a settlement right then, boom, bang, done. It's
Well, that was.
no ands, if, ors, or buts about it, you know?
And that was why I was of the opinion that I'm not sure this is a minor modification on that one. It might have to come back, it might have to get reviewed by our peer review people and those types of things, so.
Yeah, and I'm gonna reach out to town council too.
So
just to
I'm
get
not
some-
sure that's a minor modification at all, no matter what we think.
Right.
Um,
On either
we have to
one of
Publish
those.
again, have a hearing.
Yeah.
We can have a peer review. There's safety issues there, there's cost issues, so there's, and on what you talked about, the reputation, I think that's helpful to, well, it's,
I
going
think
forward.
the important things that you said tonight were, I think.
you
it was
heard 'em.
Was heard that, if you're gonna make changes, you wanna contact myself and then through the board to do that before any construction happens, you know?
Yeah,
That's the.
I'm not used to.
we're
I'm
still
not-
an open meeting.
I'm not used to going to a board and just having a builder tell me, oops, we did this, can we get,
Yep.
right, I'm
I
not
think it
used
was
to
made
that.
clear that, the vote was 2-1.
Sure.
Everyone voiced their opinion.
I only voted yes because it's already there. I didn't know what else to do, so.
I think the important point is, and then, again, as we go forward, the message will be conveyed that, you gotta be mindful, the plan that was approved, and if there's some issue that comes up in the construction process, then you gotta bring it in.
Yeah, I think that's,
Uh,
I mean, and those are big changes as far as I'm concerned.
It's not just, it's not just isolated to this, I mean, I'm
Right.
dealing across.
It could be,
other-
it's
it
other
happens
developers and everything
yeah.
else,
But,
know.
but again, the expectation and is that contact first, don't do it.
Right. The thing that, so it's what I said earlier, 40B has a negative connotation in many of the towns around here. Let's make it positive. But when you're changing things because you want to change them, not because it's been approved, that doesn't make you favorable in reality.
Defeats the whole process,
It
in a way,
defeats the
yeah.
process of what, we went through all the steps to get your development approved with modifications and everything else. You've already asked for all kinds of modifications to do this. Don't go above and beyond those modifications to just get your project done the way you wanna get it done. That doesn't work.
I think you set the message.
Yeah, I think so too, and I hope so, but,
We'll have to see as we go forward, right?
yeah,
Proof is in,
in the beholding.
yeah.
I mean,
I,
No, I think you've voiced it well, and it was clear, and
yeah.
I think we got
well,
some
and
more work to
I
do
feel
on the
for
other
the
one.
developments that take over and they have, you know, shoddy workmanship or something, from a developer that let one slip by, you know.
All right.
That farmer's
Very
porch,
good.
that farmer's porch does not look right.
A- Any,
I'm sorry, it's
No
there,
problem.
yes, but
Yeah.
it does not look right.
I think that's it for tonight.
all right, we have a
Thank you.
motion to
I have a motion to adjourn.
adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Shut it.